try to be brave, pretend there's nothing wrong, but you need a little help, yeah, to make you feel strong. You know lots of people love you. Don't let go. Lots of people love you. Don't let go. Lots of people love you. Don't let go. Don't let go.
So there you go. It is December 18th, 2017, and I want to welcome you to Let's Talk Native on the LTN Radio Network. This program breaks all the rules for Native radio. No buffalo speeches, no mystic healing, no special Indian prayers. We tackle the real issues facing Native people. We'll look back at our glorious and our grave history, a tough look at where we're at now, and look forward to our ongoing battles for sovereignty and autonomy. Let's Talk Native is produced in association with Iroquois Promotions on the LTN Radio Network, streaming live from the Cattaraugus territory of the Seneca Nation. And simulcast on the Gwe, CKWE in Tandanega. You can find us at www.ltnradionet.com. And, of course, we are streaming live here on Facebook. I am John Kane. I'm the show's host and producer, and I'm joined in studio by Jake Proud. And Jake is manning our board and our camera for our Facebook live stream, as well as to capture that video for our YouTube channel, which is Let's Talk Native TV. And there you can see full episodes of our show, and you can also subscribe to that channel. So I encourage you to do so. Our studio engineer is Kelly McMillan, and I want to thank her for the fine work that she's done. And of course, that opening song was a Murray Porter song that I assume is going to be on his new CD. And that new CD, by the way, he's taking pre-orders for. He's self-funding his CD release. And if you you can find him on Facebook. He's got an event, I think, associated with funding his new CD. So if you send him $20 today, and in March you'll get his latest CD, and it's got many brand new. He thinks it's his best work, which for me and many of us, that's kind of hard to believe, because we think some of his work has been phenomenal. It has been the kind of work that addresses every issue that we face here as Native people, living in a world that is kind of stacked things against us, and so we're always impressed with Murray's music. And man, if this is his best work, then you'd be foolish not to throw $20 at him today for a copy of his CD in March. So I want to say that. Look, like I said, it's December 18th, and for me, that day holds some special meaning. And my buddy Matt, who is not in studio with us today, he kind of busted me by posting welcome to the John Kane Happy Birthday edition of LTN. Look, it is my birthday this week, but that's not what I'm going to talk about, at least not directly about today, because although my birthday is in a few days, what today is, it's the anniversary of one of, I've not had a whole lot of tragedy in my life, and I don't mean my tragedy, but the tragedy in my family. But one of those tragedies that my family has experienced has been the loss of somebody that we mourn still to this day, and that's Leston James White Pigeon. He was my son-in-law. He's the father of two of my grandchildren, the husband of my daughter. And it was 6 years ago today, like I said, that we lost him. And the thing that I wrestle with is not just the idea of losing somebody so important to all of our lives, somebody who we very much loved and appreciated, and obviously welcomed into our family and became a part of our family in such a meaningful way. But in losing a father and a husband and a son, a brother, an uncle. I hope that, it didn't at the time perhaps, but I still hope the idea of losing somebody significant in your life can have a sobering effect. And I don't mean literally sobering, but perhaps literally too in some cases. Effect in making people realize what's important in life. I mean, I lost my son-in-law to cancer. A young man, developed bone cancer, not lung cancer, not a cancer from some sort of high risk. I mean, this is a disease that nobody asks for, and it is not lifestyle related. Is it just bad luck? It has to do with the environment, some of the contaminations that we face on our territories? Who knows? Some of the stuff that has made its way into our DNA from years of poverty and oppression. Who knows? What I do know is we lost a great young man 6 years ago, and my grandchildren lost two of my grandchildren lost their father, and it's a struggle every day. It's a struggle every day for a family to pick those pieces back up. But what makes the struggle even more is to see others squandering happiness. And as much as I want to honor the legacy of my son-in-law, we call him LJWP. As much as I want to honor that legacy, I also want to question. I want to question priorities that so many of us seem to be challenged with. We talk about identity a lot on this show. But along with things like identity, we also have to think about the choices we make in our life. And the choices we make, not just relating to that identity, but the choices we make in our life to lifestyle, to prioritizing, what's important to us as a man, a woman, a father, a husband, an uncle. And how do we maintain that level of responsibility and not feel like we haven't lived? I mean, look, the idea of responsibility shouldn't be looked at as just a chore. It shouldn't be a burden. Responsibility is something that you should revel in. And that's a little bit what I want to talk about today. Look, I know we're battling opiate addictions and alcohol addictions, and we've got domestic violence situations. We've got children that are not being cared for properly. These are, in every one of those things, are choices that people are making. I'm not saying the children are making those choices, but adults are making those choices. And look, I know we can get into a whole debate whether addiction is really a disease or not. But no matter where you come out on that, there's no question that lifestyle choices plays a big part of the addiction problem. And I know some people, get a prescription for pain and it turns into an addiction. I get it. But you know what? A lion's share, the biggest part of addiction, usually comes from even some level the abuse of those prescriptions. So there's choices made. And of course, the other thing, what separates a disease like drug addiction from cancer is that there's a cure. There is a cure for addiction. And it starts by making the choices to be cured. And not constantly being at the doorstep searching for that euphoria from your first high. So I'm not going to lecture about addiction, but I do want to talk about lifestyle choices. I want to talk about the kinds of choices we need to make that help us to pursue happiness rather than the pursuit of feeling good. My friend Ross John, Seneca Nation counselor, a friend of mine for a long time, he always draws that distinction between pursuing that feel good versus pursuing happiness. Because you can spend many days of your life feeling really, really good, and still never be happy. Now, I'm not saying if you're happy, you don't feel good too. But there's this whole idea of pursuing that euphoria from being drunk or stoned or uh, pursuing whatever is that feel good for the moment, whether it's infidelity, whether it's partying, whatever the reckless thing that you could do that brings you that euphoria, that moment of pleasure. It's the idea of looking at short-term enjoyment or pleasure or fun versus longer-term happiness. I mean, there's nothing quite like seeing the birth of your child or even your grandchild. And I've had the pleasure of I've got 9 grandchildren, 3 children, and watching their success. And there's nothing more painful than sharing in the pain and misery of a loss. So every year when we are faced with the anniversary of the passing of a family member, sometimes it actually makes me a little bit more bitter towards those who take their circumstance for granted, who don't take care of themselves, who do abuse their loved ones or ignore them. Leave somebody in a situation where, because abuse can be, physical abuse, but it also can be neglect. Our family member was a responsible father. He didn't neglect his family. Was he a saint? No, none of us are. Whatever that's supposed to mean. But he was a good person, and anybody who knew him knew he was a good person. And when the word spread that he was diagnosed with cancer, almost to a person, they said, "Wow, he's such a nice guy. What a terrible thing to happen." And it's not like anybody says, "Well, that guy's a lousy person. It's a good thing he got sick." Nobody says that. But this isn't about, there's certain expressions that come along, God only gives you what you can handle, or whatever he's throwing at you to make you stronger. Look, or that it all happens for a reason. No, some things don't. Really bad things happen to really good people, and really good things happen to some real, real bad people. There's no rhyme and reason in some of this stuff. But if there's one lesson that should come away from seeing a good person being taken from us by a disease or by a tragedy or whatever, is that we should do everything we can not to have that tragedy repeat itself, or worse, or to have other tragedies come into our families and into our lives. We oftentimes get into a conversation about what our responsibilities are, and I've had conversations about the quote unquote warrior. What is a warrior? What's the responsibilities of a man? Well, we all have responsibilities, and some of those responsibilities come at us at different times in our lives. Children, a spouse, a wife, or perhaps it's not even our own children. Maybe it's the responsibility we take up from a family member because perhaps they lost somebody and need help. But these responsibilities are opportunities. They are opportunities to do good things, not only in your life, but in the lives of somebody else. And when you miss those opportunities, and you miss the opportunity to do good, or choose the alternative, which is, no, I'm just going to take advantage of somebody, or I'm going to abuse somebody, or I'm going to neglect somebody. Whether it's, your child or whether it's your parent. Look, I know people are settling into the holiday spirit, which is tough for some people. Sometimes people, they start to acknowledge more that sometimes these holidays, and especially a season of holidays like like Christmas and New Year's are considered, not everybody considers them joyous occasions. Some people have tragedy associated with those times of the year. Some people, some people who are battling with depression find the holidays even more unbearable. The holidays can have the opposite effect to some people. And, I think we add to that stress because of what these so-called holidays have become. But I'm not trying to take this show and take joy out of anybody's life. And I guess if I'm coming across as lecturing people on behavior, well, then so be it. I did see a very good person who never had the opportunity to see his children grow up. That's right. I have a birthday this week, and getting old, is one of those things that you can joke about, right? And we all say, "Oh, getting old sucks." But you know what? The alternative is worse. I mean, I hope my children at least see the years that I've seen. I'm going to be 58 years old in a couple of days. And I don't plan on checking out anytime soon. But, so when guys like me complain about, getting old is so terrible, the alternative is worse. Not having the opportunity to see your old age, to see your children grow, to see your grandchildren. That's a travesty. Yet how many of us take up behavior or lifestyle choices or whatever you want to call it that put all of that at risk? And not only do they put your own mortality at risk, but it puts the lives of so many close to you at risk. Your children, your loved ones, people who count on you. Oftentimes people count on others, not even in ways because because they're trying to place a burden on somebody, but sometimes we serve as examples to people. It scares me to death the idea of leaving my wife and my children and my grandchildren, at this stage of my life. I can't imagine having to have done that to my wife when I was only 30, when our children were small. Not only because of the loss of my opportunity to ever see my children grow up, but just that burden. That burden of trying to be a single mother, raising children. So I ask all of you. I ask you to take a look at the person that you're involved with, and maybe take a sober assessment on what you need to do to make your relationship better, what you need to do to maybe care for your children a little bit more. Pursue happiness, not just feeling good. And that distinction is real, and it's important. Because when you enjoy your life and you enjoy your family and you enjoy your children, the idea of feeling good, euphoria, comes without a cost then. But the idea of partying, or somehow having some sort of physical release, whether it's beating somebody up, even somebody close to you, like your wife or your children. It's not a question. There's no question about justification. That's not even part of the equation. Because when people act out physically, they aren't considering the long-term effects of their actions. When people do things irresponsibly, especially in the pursuit of fun, and then that pursuit of fun has a cost to it, whether it's family turmoil, fighting in front of kids, domestic violence, and worse. We talk about missing and murdered Indigenous women. And we know that domestic violence on Native territories, 70% of it is non-Native men perpetrating violence against women, Native women. But 30% of it are Native guys beating up Native women. 30% of it. And it may be higher than that. I mean, we're talking about reported stuff. I mean, there's no excuse to physically abuse a woman or a child. And I know we can get into a conversation of, well, women can do things too. Yeah, there's no question about that. And women, there's a responsibility you have too. The pursuit of happiness for a family is something that is a team effort. Look, I've been married over 35 years. And it hasn't been, 35 years of labor. Oh, sure, everybody has their moments where, where things get tough in a relationship. I went to prison for a couple of years, man. You want to talk about the kind of bump in the road in a relationship? Yeah, so I did that. But the idea of working with your partner to make a life for your children and trying to do the right thing by those children and have patience and tolerance and appreciation. And again, looking for that joy, for that feeling good that can only come from happiness. Because the feeling good that comes from a bottle or a pill or a needle or a pipe, they all have a cost to them. And I mean, even the casual, even if you think you're a casual drinker and you're a casual drug user, casual smoker, whatever else, there's still some cost to it. And so you have to evaluate that. You have to evaluate that in terms of where does it leave you with the explanation to your children for your behavior when you're under the influence? Where does it leave you in the explanation to your employer, or to other community members? And how much do you become complicit in the behavior of others? I mean, partying doesn't happen. I mean, I know that some drug abuse happens, alone in a room, but partying doesn't. Partying takes a party, takes people. How many times are we playing a role in corrupting our closest friends by encouraging bad behavior rather than the alternative? I mean, if your buddy beats the hell out of his woman, do you scold him or do you ignore it? Do you pretend you didn't see it? Because if you ignore it, you're complicit. Because if he's truly your friend, he respects you. See, and these are the kinds of things that I think we, and perhaps even more so as Native people, because we are a closer community. But we have rejected not only personal responsibility, but it turns out that we've rejected the responsibility we have to others. We can't talk about nation building. We can't talk about decolonization if we have adopted all of the bad practices of the colonizers, male dominance, mind-altering drugs and drinks. We didn't have alcohol. That was used as a tool, as a weapon against us. And now we partake in it willingly. We didn't beat our women. And you know what? If anybody did, they would have to answer to others in a community. Now what do? We call a cop? Maybe. We see a child that's being neglected or being abused. Maybe we pick up the phone and make an anonymous call to CPS. But what do we really do? What do we really do to help that child? And what do we do to help the parents who are clearly not in a good place if they're abusing their children or each other? In our wedding ceremony, in the longhouse, traditionally, the entire community is reminded of the responsibility we have to help that young couple. We tell the young women, this man is no longer available to you. And you should not be trying to seduce this man. And we tell the young men, this woman is no longer available to you. If you find her in a vulnerable state, I don't care if it's drunk on the side of the road in a ditch. You have a responsibility to help her, not take advantage of her. This idea of harboring your missed opportunity for, to snag somebody up, those are bad community decisions. So when a couple is having trouble, we all should be there to help them. Not encourage them to, not just taking sides and saying to the woman, all the bad things they can about the man, or to the man all the bad things about the woman. I mean, the first question we should ask when we know that there's a couple struggling is, what do you want? And how can and let's figure out how to help. These are the conversations we need to have. We see a child in trouble, whether it's a child in trouble in school, maybe it's appearance issues. But the first sign of neglect has to be the appearance of a child. We should all do what we can to help that child and to help the family struggling with that child. That is what community is. Because we can't talk about nation. We can't talk about confederacy. We can't talk about sovereignty if we aren't even willing to talk about family. I know this is some tough stuff. This is some tough stuff for y'all. You guys wanting to go out and celebrate holiday, Christmas cheer and all that other stuff. I realize that. But it doesn't have to be a downer. I mean, it really doesn't. Look, we can be festive. I mean, we have, every culture. I mean, our culture, Longhouse, we have, we call them ceremonies, but they're actually festivals. It's about fun. It's about dance and music and enjoyment. Not necessarily tied to getting loaded. But look, I know this is the time of year where people go to Christmas parties and they get ready to celebrate New Year's and all of that stuff, and and there's alcohol consumed and any number of other things. Who knows? And I'm not trying to scold anybody from partaking in any type of festive activity. I'm just saying let's try to think about responsibility and about cause and effect. Let's not turn what many people think is supposed to be a joyous part of the year, a joyous occasion, into tragedy. There's enough tragedy happening that's beyond our control. We do have people who fall ill through no fault of their own. We have bad weather and we have bad roads. We have people that, travel accidents. I mean, I take a train to New York every week, and I open up when I start playing music an hour ago. I opened up with Train from Blackfoot, thinking, "Wow, that's I never thought about this train derailment in Washington." Look, there's enough tragedy around without us causing tragedy because of our behavior. So that's kind of my message, and this is the message that I take away, not from the death of my son-in-law, but from the life of my son-in-law. Leston James, White Pigeon Jr. All right, hey, we're at the bottom of the hour. I'm going to take a break here, and we'll come right on back. This is John Kane. This is Let's Talk Native.
Did you ever cry out in the pouring rain? Did separate. Did you ever feel like you're going insane? Oh, then you feel like me. Ever since she went away. Did you ever see a world that's cloudy and gray? Oh, then you feel like me. Ever since she went away. You lie awake at night, praying for daylight. Seems like daylight never comes. And in the morning light, things still ain't right. All you can do is think of why she ain't here tonight. Did you ever?
All right, that's Murray Porter's song "Since She Went Away," which is the song that he dedicated to missing and murdered Indigenous women. And look, I know this is a day that that our family struggles a little bit. It's a somber day, and I'm not trying to bring everybody down. And we all are struggling with so much, and if you look at Native territories in particular. I mean, Murray's opening song, which was Don't Let Go, which is addressing suicide issues. We have some of the worst numbers associated with things like, substance abuse and suicide. And we top all the lists that nobody wants to top. And we have control over many of it. We also top lists that we don't have control over, cancer rates, for instance, contamination of our water and stuff like that, stuff that has been done to us. But our success in making our communities better and healthier, they are in our control. But we seem to be caught in such so much turmoil associated with everything from, again, identity and lifestyles. And they are connected. They are connected because, as we talk about things like, our past and our culture, we have to sometimes be careful. I mean, and understanding what any of that even means, because it's been manipulated. I oftentimes talk about cognitive dissonance, and I talk about how there are things that we do every day that we know are wrong. There are things that we have adopted into our lives that are inconsistent with everything we know about our culture, about our history, about about the direction, the strategy for success in life. I mean, there are people gainfully employed who choose to do drugs recreationally. I'm not talking about people struggling necessarily with depression, but it's what they're doing as a choice. Of all the things you could do with your gainful employment, with your money, of all the things that you could do, the idea that somehow any of us have settled on that, it's incredible. I mean, we talk about Native pride, and I'm not sure how much we demonstrate it with our lives. And I think this is the important stuff. I mean, this is the stuff that we need to really consider in terms of identity, in terms of who we are and where we're going. I think this is the most important stuff. You know, and you know, we talk about educating our children, and I don't mean just sending them to school. I mean, what are we teaching them? What are we teaching them about how to treat other people? You know, I do radio in New York. So the voice that I share over the radio waves isn't just about native people to native people. So when I go to New York, I'm talking to a whole different audience, a completely diverse audience. And I'm offering a native perspective to issues that we're all facing. So down there, I'm going to talk about stuff happening in New York. Eric Garner being choked to death for being accused for selling cigarettes. Yeah, there's a little bit of a connection there between us and Eric Garner. I'm going to talk about Black Lives Matter because you know what? It's not just black people being killed by police. It's native people being killed by police. But a lot of that, it's where do we get to that place? And what are the lifestyle choices we're making that can affect how we, not only how we react, but how do we stand up to that oppression? You know, like I said, I talked about this last week and, you know, actually a little bit the week before. Down in Alabama, a racist child molester was on the verge of becoming a United States senator in Alabama. And because enough black people came out and voted for his Democratic challenger, they were able to prevent this from happening. And while that may work, the idea of rallying people to the voting booths might work in a place like Alabama where 30% of the population is black. For us back here, in our native territories, we are never going to affect state policy. Forget about trying to put a U.S. senator in office. You know how very little influence we have over the two senators that represent New York State in the U.S. Congress, Gillibrand and Schumer. Look, maybe you're on their email list. You know I am. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean they're listening to anything I got to say. So we have to have a different policy. We have to have a different strategy going forward. But like I said, when I go to New York, I've got a whole different, basket of issues to talk about, and a completely different audience. It doesn't mean I change my message, but what changes is the reason for my message. The reason for me to deliver a native perspective in New York is to, first off, announce clearly that we're still here in a city of 10 to 12 million people or more, counting the outlying areas. We as a native population are pretty insignificant, and yet that's where the power brokers of the state of New York are. So when I go to New York, the first thing I've got to do is say, look, we're still here. Then I've got to reason with the people to say, look, the perspective that we have. I mean, for me to get on New York airways and say it's wrong to vote. I never say that to New Yorkers. I say it's wrong for me to vote in their elections. But that's not the main part of my message. The main part of my message is, even if you do vote, you better do something else too. Because if you think pulling a lever in a voting booth once a year or once every 2 years or once every 4 years, if you even do that, that somehow checks the box for your civic responsibility, your responsibility to your community, to your region or to your country, well, then I'm sorry, that just doesn't get it done. So the message that I have back here in our native communities about responsibility and about the things that we need to do, from the family to the neighborhood to the community to the, to the territory, to the region, to the nation, to, whatever, however you want to, draw those circles of, or spheres of influence around each individual on a native territory. The responsibility starts with self. I mean, we can piss and moan all we want about, whether the nation is doing the right thing, or whether your counselor is doing the right thing, or whether your chief, clan mother, tribal chairman, whatever your you use for your descriptor for leadership in your territory. We can make all those complaints, but it still comes down to many of us trying to beat the system, even the system that some of those guys are trying to put in place. In fact, many of those guys are trying to beat the system that they put in place. So it comes down to self. Look, I know we're in late December, and this is one of those times of year, in spite of the bad roads and everything else, people party more during these next couple of weeks than any other time of the year. And then of course, then you got graduation time where young people party, and of course during the summer. But look, we can enjoy ourselves. And you know what? You can even, and I'm going to say this, although it sounds counterproductive, you can even drink responsibly. But know that with every drink, your filter for staying responsible becomes cloudier and cloudier and cloudier. How many times have we seen somebody blame bad behavior, and perhaps rightfully so, on drugs or alcohol? I mean, 2 people got run over, killed on the down in Salamanca. Husband and wife crossing the road. And from what I understand, the guy who hit him was drunk. I mean, I don't know all the details, but it's bizarre to me that that a husband and wife crossing a street could be just have their lives snuffed out in a moment. Now, was it caused by the alcohol? I mean, is there some bad judgment on multiple sides of this thing? I don't know, but see, this is the problem. The problem is we make one decision to do something that it's a little bit irresponsible, but it's just for a good time. We're not gonna we're not gonna go crazy, and the next thing you know, things kind of can get out of hand. So I guess what I'm telling people, my advice is, look, try not to lose all sense of responsibility, even as you're trying to feel good. And again, I gotta emphasize the difference between feeling good and being happy. If you want to be happy, then happiness requires work. Feeling good doesn't. Feeling good sometimes just requires you to throw caution to the wind. Ignore the ramifications. Ignore the repercussions of your actions. Damn it, I'm going to feel good. That's not happiness. As we, many of us, as we wind down the year, we face a lot of, reflection, I guess. And we look at, what we've accomplished in the year, and maybe perhaps the things we didn't accomplish. And so we look forward to the new year as a renewal. And that's why people make their New Year's resolution. Oh, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to quit smoking. And, those are the easy ones to list, I guess. But we also look at that New Year's as an opportunity. So you know what? I don't care what took place this year. Man, if you're listening to this show, I hope you at least give some consideration for just what a great opportunity the New Year is. But my buddy Ed, who's who spends a lot of time in the studio with us here, anytime you see Ed, he says good morning. So it doesn't matter what time of the day, he always greets you by saying good morning. People say, why do you say good morning? It's because every moment is an opportunity to start over again, is to start a new day. I mean, who says the day starts when the sun rises? I mean, every moment is the beginning, is a precursor to the next moment, right? So when Ed Schindler says good morning, he's saying this is your moment to start a new day. Man, that is an uplifting thing. I know some people think it's quirky, and maybe they don't fully understand what Ed's message is, but every time he tells you good morning, what he's telling you is, man, you got an opportunity because you're alive and you're here, and you have a great opportunity to right the wrongs in your life, and maybe even help the wrongs in somebody else's life. Every day, every moment is an opportunity to change direction. I mean, not everybody's going to realize the moment you change direction. So if the whole reason for changing direction is because you want to be praised for it, well, that may not be the case. But as we wind down this year, and for me, on this day, on this, really most somber of days, because like I said, in my life, I've not had a whole lot of tragedy. I'm not saying we haven't had disturbances. Like I said, I went to prison for a couple of years. A bit of a tragedy, but that it wasn't. It's one thing that I knew that was going to be over with, right? But the one tragedy in my life was watching my grandchildren lose their father. So I use this day as a reminder. As a reminder to do what Ed Schindler says. Tell people good morning. LJWP ran out of mornings. In our funerals, we say that people used all their days. They lived all their days. And we don't know why those days have to come to an end sometimes for some people. But if you're listening to the show, in all likelihood, you've got tomorrow to face. You have the next moment to face. And man, if you had plans to go out and get totally wasted this weekend, and you're thinking, or this week, or whatever, and you're saying, man, John Kane's really going to screw my plans up. He's going to make me feel guilty for what look. I'm not saying change your plans. I'm not saying that. Seneca Nation has a Christmas party tomorrow. I don't even know what's involved in that, but but what I'm saying is, use every next moment of your life, to make a change. Look, and I know plenty of people that are living good lives. I know plenty of people who are doing what I consider the right things. In my estimation, or at least on the appearance sake. I know some great couples, and I know some people who are great fathers and mothers, and I know some great kids and that kind of stuff. So this isn't open condemnation to everybody. And in fact, it's not really open condemnation to anybody. What I'm saying is that, man, we all have the same opportunity. This idea that we're all created equal. No, we all have equal opportunities, to affect change. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have cards stacked against us. I mean, if you're born in poverty, or if you're born, with racism in the environment around you. Look, I know all that. But every one of us has an opportunity to do good and to affect the change in our lives and the lives of people closest to us. And that's not always easy. That's not always. I mean, look, I raise kids, and I spend quality time with grandchildren, and they aren't all angels. They're not angels. They're incredible fun to be around, but that's not. We're not asking people to have lives that aren't interesting, that are vanilla. No, that's not what we're saying. I mean, there's joys. There's joys you can find in every moment if you look for it. there's days. Tonight, in fact, with my LJWP crew, we took some of those lighted balloons. We usually do those Chinese lanterns and light them off, so the kids can kind of get the sense of, sending something to their father, and beyond any religious stuff. This idea of, you know, doing a gesture. I guess it's kind of like burning tobacco and, letting something go from a solid into the air, because that's kind of, retracing what we see with the passing of our loved ones. So we let off these, instead of Chinese lanterns, we did balloons, lighted balloons, and we watched them. In spite of the somberness of the occasion, there was joy and fun. And one of the balloons, and I don't know, I'll say when I get home, one of them still stuck in my tree. So we lit off, I don't know, there must have been 20 balloons. Out of 20 balloons, I think one of them stayed by. Almost looks like because it was a yellower balloon, looks like the moon up there shining over our house. And there's a certain part of watching that one balloon hang there in the tree, that you couldn't help but, feel a little bit of the presence of who we were lighting those balloons off for. There's joy, there's opportunity for joy in every moment. So, I'm not saying I'm gonna pick up on Ed's strategy of saying good morning every time somebody greets me, or every time I greet somebody. But I appreciate what he does. And I appreciate what that sentiment is. And as we wind down this year, I realize that we still got several shows before the new year. But this is one of those days, and one of those times of the year that I think about a door closing, because such a significant door closed on, a part of our family. But I also look at at my grandchildren. Les LJWP Jr. and Julia. I look at these two grandchildren. I'm thinking, and I trust me, I have to look after these guys. But at the same time, there's not a time. A lot of laughs with these guys. And for me, I promised Les before he passed that I'd look after his kids. It was an easy promise to make. I'm the grandfather after all, but that was an easy promise to make, and an easy promise to keep. And you know what? Out of that promise, out of that responsibility, out of that burden, comes joy. Comes feeling good. And comes happiness. You got to value your family, folks, and you got to value, the loved ones around you, and even the ones that aren't your loved ones. I'm going to go to New York tomorrow, and I'll be there for a couple of days, and I'm going to see a whole lot of homeless people on the streets. And I'm not saying that I dig in my pockets and give money to every person who puts their hand out, but there's probably not a time that I don't go to New York that I don't help somebody. And I'm not saying this because I want praise for it or whatever else. Frankly, I don't think I can't help somebody, because there's almost a shame or a guilt that comes along with it. I have my favorite pizza places that are dollars a slice. I figure if I can eat a meal for $3 at a pizza joint, I can probably peel off a dollar bill for somebody who might be hungry or thirsty. There's an opportunity every day to do good. And first, do good for yourself. And I don't mean be selfish, but I mean help yourself be good. And, be responsible. Let your conscience guide you perhaps a little bit more than your desire to have fun. Like I said, my buddy Ross, he said he spent many years pursuing feeling good. And he had lots of fun. But but even in the process of feeling good, he said he wasn't happy. There's a difference between feeling good and being happy. And if there's one thing that I could suggest to people, maybe this time of year more than any other, part of it is, the somberness of our occasion in my household, is to say pursue happiness. Pursue happiness above all else. Hey, look, almost out of time, so let me do a quick rundown. I want to thank my sponsors. I want to thank Ross and Holly John of the RJE family of businesses, Eric White and ERW Enterprises. I want to thank my good friends like Ed Schindler, who contribute in this show. Even when he's not here, he contributes in ways, even if only saying good morning. But I want to thank my buddy Ed Schindler, who supports the program. My friend Cynthia Trice, Neville Spring, who's supported the show in ways most people can't imagine. Sugar Montour, another friend who helps this program, helps me in ways that most people don't realize. And I want to add to that list the Seneca Nation, who has probably more recently than not acknowledged the work that I do as an asset to their struggles and their battles with the state and such. So I want to thank them for supporting me in kind. And I want to thank many others who have helped this program to continue to educate, entertain, and inform over the last. We're well into our 8th year now. So I want to thank all of you for doing your part and being a part of the fight. I want to thank Unity Stream and Apache Radio Net for providing our streaming. I also want to thank CKWE for both the simulcast and the rebroadcast of this show. I want to thank Netroots Radio, Real People's Media, and Indigenous Resistance Radio for carrying this program, and for all of you who share the show. Share it on Facebook. You share it on you share my SoundCloud posts and of course my YouTube posts. So I want to thank all of you, and look forward to catching up with you again. I will be in New York on Thursday, and we'll be live streaming on Facebook my Let's Talk John Kane on WBAI show as well. And then I'll see you on Friday. Yahweh.
She gave me the world, and the universe agreed. She gave me a heart, that's all that I need. She was my best friend, but I couldn't see. She needed a good man. That man was me. I wasn't thinking, I was a fool. She was right there beside me, but I was still cool. It's almost too late when I realized what I had, what I denied. She gave me the world, and the universe agreed.